Well, it's me, Joesephyr, and I know that I haven't really addressed a lot of the situation that's been going on with Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia since it was all announced, like this whole gem cap situation and the backlash that's kind of come with it. And I know I have talked about it kind of in passing through other videos, but I've never really made a video really talking about the situation, how it's affected me, how it's affected the channel, and how I feel about it, really. So I thought that I've seen a lot of criticism aimed at me for not speaking up about it, and so I thought, alright, I'll take the opportunity to do this now. We have a community stream coming up on Monday, and I think that it's going to be a very pivotal point in Dissidia's life cycle. So there's going to be 3 parts to this video, essentially. So first of all, I'll talk about why I've stayed relatively quiet, and I've tried to focus on the game and stay positive where I could, despite this critical feedback about being quieter, while I've also been asking a lot of questions from my community, the greater Dissidia community on Twitter and things like that, and also just why I wanted to be a little quieter and kind of now why I'm talking about it now. I want to talk about how I really feel about the way things currently are with Dissidia, which is extremely negative, of course. I've tried to stay positive, but there's a lot of things that can't be ignored, both from the developers' point of views and the communities as well. And then, thirdly, I'd like to try and talk about the steps that I've been trying to take to better myself, better the channel, and therefore what I want to try and do about it. So you can see I'm not in my normal streaming room at the moment. I've actually been taking the day away from my house. I'm on my laptop right now because I honestly was kind of hitting a bit of a fever pitch with it all. A lot of people have been asking me a lot of questions about it, whether I've been streaming, even if I'm streaming something different, or like there's a level of inescapability that's come with it, and it's affected me quite badly. So I've kind of stepped away from it as much as I could. But if it's all stuff that you want to hear about, then stay tuned and keep on watching. To all the different things about social media and all of that, like I normally do, but I do genuinely want to give a shout out to all of my patrons over on Patreon, because when I talk about these things, I often worry that it comes across that I'm just kind of saying a bit and that I'm not super appreciative of every single person that joins in and supports this channel, and that's absolutely could not be further from the truth. I really do. Every time I say these things about my Patreon and stuff like that, I mean every word of it. Like, for the people who've supported me on the Ultimate Patrons, like, I hand make everything, like handwritten, all of it, and it all gets sent out to everybody because I just want to be able to give back to the people who've supported me, and it means such a great deal. So I want to say, certainly in this time where things are a bit uneasy and kind of tentative, that I really do appreciate every single one of you, and I could not thank you enough. By discussing the situation itself first and foremost. What's going on? Why does it affect the community so negatively? And what could come of it? Now, do excuse me because I do have a lot of notes written here because I am a bit worried about uploading this video in the first place. But to give a quick rundown for anyone who doesn't know, and I'm sure most of you do at this point, a lot of content creators, Reddit, Twitter, it's all been covered. There is a hashtag for Stop the Cap that's going around and it's very popular. But on March 22nd, there is a limitation being introduced to Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia that prevents people from purchasing gems over a 300,000 gem limit. So they can't have any more than 300,000 paid gems in your account at any given time. Now, this doesn't only prevent the purchase of gems themselves, but also any bundles, additional items that include them, be they costumes, Mog Pass, whether it's regular or premium, weapon glosses, LD shop, anything. We've seen that the Japanese version has already implemented this, and you can't even attempt to purchase any of these items. So what that means is that we've just been locked out of supporting the game entirely to a certain level. On a personal level, this does affect me, as I'm already above that cap due to both the kindness of others in my streams, etc., and my own pocket over the course of the last 4 years, because I've played Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia since the day it came out, and I started doing content for it a year later. Now, I'd like to reiterate here that I have never, in my 4 years of playing this game, ever bought outright gems. I've only ever bought bundles that contain them. Have I bought a lot of them over the course of time? Absolutely. It doesn't take a genius to look at my videos and see that I own a lot of the alternate costumes, for example. But once you've got to that point due to the fact that we spend our acquired gems, so the free ones we get from playing the game, before any paid ones that we have. A pool of them starts to form over time, which only gets bigger and can eventually lead to a similar situation to myself, where so long as you've been somewhat prudent in saving and making sure you're not spending loads on every banner, you'll never touch that pool of paid gems, because you've suddenly been faced with the idea that you're being punished for saving those gems because you can now no longer support the game at all. Now I know what you're thinking. Joe, 300,000 gems is a lot. That's got to be in the thousands of dollars that's been spent. Surely that's going to cost a fortune to get to. Not many people pay that, so why does it affect me? Well, Dissidia is a free-to-play game that relies on those that do spend money to survive, and it's not the biggest money maker out of all the gacha style games, not even all the Final Fantasy style gacha games out there as it is. So to literally stymie the amount of money the game can make is completely nonsensical to me. There's a lot of people that this doesn't affect, so free-to-play players who might ask the question, why does this affect me? Well, it does also not affect people who like to spend frivolously on their gems, because if you are somebody that's very frugal with spending and stuff like that, there's a chance, I'm not saying this applies to everybody that does this, but there's a chance that the gem cap's not going to affect you, because if you're spending that frivolously, you're never going to hit that 300,000 paid gem cap to begin with. So it's not going to affect you because you're just happy to open your wallet and continue spending, because you're going to spend your gems as you get them. You're not going to need to save, because why would you? So it really feels like it's only punishing people who've supported the game for a long time, like myself, and people who've been happy to spend money on it, but over the course of a long period of time. So to all of us, and I certainly feel this way, and I'm sure many other people do, it's a bit of a slap in the face, which of course leads to many who did want to spend money on the game suddenly no longer wanting to and moving on to something else instead. Because at the end of the day, if Dissidia is not going to take somebody's money, something else will, and it's likely that that person will find somewhere else to spend it, drop the game entirely, which then weakens the game's presence. We end up with less players, we end up with the game making less money, and things can just spiral from there, as I'm sure you can see what I'm getting at. Now, it's important to say here that the radio silence that's followed this announcement has honestly riled people up probably more, just as much, if not more, than the announcement itself. And it's important to say again that sending any kind of hate to any particular person, whether it's me, other content creators, community managers, is not acceptable. We can be unhappy about the situation. We are unhappy about the situation. But all of these people are people, and people who probably didn't make the decision that we're angry at. So being angry at the situation can incite a positive change. At the end of the day, we've all seen the original Sonic movie render, and enough negativity towards the situation can make things more positive. But sending any kind of anger or hate or anything to an individual changes nothing, apart from people shouting into a void that they think is a void, but actually there's somebody at the other end of it. So I'm honestly gobsmacked by the lack of a response to the backlash that so many have shown. And all it takes is a quick trip to Twitter or Reddit or pretty much any other content creator, including myself. I may not have spoken so brazenly about it as I am now, but I have mentioned it in passing. And I said it earlier, but the next community stream is going to be a very interesting one. I would not want to be in Square Enix's chat that day, if I'm honest. I will be streaming it as I normally do, but I've already put some security measures in place, because I have a feeling that whether it's before the stream starts or depending on what happens with it, there's going to be rather a lot of very upset people, and therefore I have to kind of look out for myself and the people who are just coming along to try and enjoy their time there. But despite this bizarre implementation and all this stuff that's going on right now, I genuinely don't think Dissidia is going anywhere anytime soon. The reason I say that is because I've seen a lot of large-scale influencers have been featuring the game in their sponsored ads, so it makes zero sense to me for the marketing team to do that and pay all this money to these large-scale influencers to advertise the game on a game that they don't want to succeed. So I've seen loads of comments of people saying like, oh, Square's trying to run Dissidia into the ground or stuff like that. I don't think that that's true, because it just wouldn't make sense for them to try to advertise it and then ruin it. It doesn't make sense. But if it is based on law or whatever the circumstances are that have led to this implementation, going this long without any indication as to why things are going this way is a very difficult pill to swallow. We did get a response from the community managers early on, like after it had been sort of announced, but since then we've heard nothing, and a lot of people are really struggling with this, and I completely empathise and understand why. Many people have said outright that they don't want to support the game anymore due to the imbalance that the gem cap presents, or have stopped playing the game entirely. I've had loads of people come into my streams and go, oh, I haven't played it anymore since then. And moving on to my next point, honestly, the reason that I haven't been so overt in my own criticism of the situation, despite the fact that I feel very negatively about it, is in large part because I don't really feel like I have a choice. Okay, so why is it that I've stayed quieter about Dissidia's current state when it's such a hot topic for everybody? Well, the truth of the matter is that, honestly, it utterly terrifies me to talk about it. Now, I've spoken about how the situation is as a whole, but since the announcement of the gem cap, there has been a heavy realisation for me, in no part due to lots of people telling me that they're not playing the game anymore, lots of people telling me how unhappy they are, and some even less pleasant things that have been said to me, that if something were to happen to the game, like it go under, God forbid, touch wood, that doesn't happen, my livelihood, as it currently stands, would go down along with it. It feels like there's an entrapment involved in it where I can't really escape the situation either, because every conversation that I have recently feels like it's tied to Dissidia in some way, which is probably very innocuous to a lot of people, and I certainly don't want people to feel that they can't approach me with it, which again, sometimes it seeps out in my streams, and I noticed this yesterday, and it's part of why I decided I need to talk about this while I was playing Stranger of Paradise. People were asking me questions about Dissidia, and I was very kind of resistant to answering them, and then I felt really apologetic and really guilty about it, and then I had to kind of explain myself, and it was just a whole thing, and then I was like, okay, I have to say something about this, and that's partly why I'm making this video now, as opposed to when I should have made it quite a while ago. I understand why people talk to me about Dissidia. It's the primary reason many of you have come to my channel in the first place, but along with the uneasiness that surrounds it currently, and the fact that I have been trying to do a lot of other stuff, primarily within the Final Fantasy sphere, as it were, FF14. I've been doing video reviews again recently, which I have really enjoyed, and stuff like that. There's a level of an impact to my worth as a content creator, and kind of as a person, especially when I receive messages along the lines of, how does it feel to know your channel's going to die along with this game? How does it, like, Joe's not saying anything because he crawls up the company's backside? There's lots of things that get said to me, and I do try and push it down. And I know sometimes I talk about the negativity that hits my channel sometimes, but I don't talk about a lot of it. But sometimes I get to a point where I hit a fever pitch and then I kind of crumble and I don't really know how to do anything. So when I try to do so many other things, and it feels like the efforts toward them always redirect back to Dissidia, it's become a constant reminder that a lot of what I've worked really hard for to achieve could be snapped out of existence by someone else's decisions, and that's a really terrifying thought. So I'll be really honest about it. Sorry, I am kind of struggling to talk about this. I buried my head in the sand a little bit, and I've talked about it on stream when it's come up. So those of you who have been in them, particularly like my Stranger of Paradise stream yesterday, could say I have spoken about it, but I've often shied away from it in favour of just talking about anything other than Dissidia, which is out of fear, but that's probably really wrong of me, because there's an anxiety within me that tells me that without Dissidia, I'm nothing as a content creator. And it's very difficult for me to be honest about it, because whenever I've been honest and spoken my truth about this kind of thing, I come under a lot of scrutiny and criticism, which, when I'm talking about my truth, it's really difficult for me to kind of navigate how to deal with that. Because for many people, it's just a game, right? I mean, I even say that a lot on my streams, on videos, and all of that. in part because I need to convince myself of that fact, even though it is a different scenario for me. I am extremely fortunate to have viewers who value my opinion on anything at all, or people that watch me and just want to laugh at me because I'm a salty bitch when it comes to pools, etc. I'm very, very fortunate like that. So I don't like being feeling this kind of way, because I feel like I'm letting everybody down. And I've asked a lot of questions on Twitter, on Patreon, while I've been on stream, all sorts of things about whether people are happy with the way the game is, in spite of what's going on. And what's been really confusing about it is that the responses have actually been largely positive, which is a major reason why I've tried my hardest to kind of just continue on as normal and not really address that kind of thing, because I thought to myself, well, lots of other people are kind of covering this, I don't really need to, and if I do, then I'm opening a can of worms as to how it affects me personally and how I need to deal with that. So it has been a very difficult topic of conversation, even though I understand how important it is for the games community as a whole. The reason I'm talking about it now is because I had this realization yesterday. It's honestly it's eating me up. It really is. And I'm not entirely sure what else to do at this point than to speak my truth on the matter. It is hard for me to really love the content that I'm making for a game that could literally ruin me at any given time. But at the end of it all, I do still like it. I still really enjoy the game. I still want to continue to play it. And more importantly, I love Final Fantasy. And that's never going to change. Okay, so lastly, how do I think the situation could be better, and what do I plan to do about it? Well, the obvious answer is to remove the cap entirely. You know, this stop the cap hashtag has been going around for a reason, because realistically, it doesn't help anybody. But failing that, I guess swapping the order in which we spend gems so that we're spending paid ones first and then free ones later means that one still can't just continuously spend until they hit 6 figures of paid gems and ruin their credit cards doing it. But it does still mean that over the course of time we can still support the game and purchase the things we want to, as we did before. If some form of paid banners start to become available, which was honestly my first thought, which didn't make me feel great when looking at the game, probably doesn't help the situation at all, because realistically, you're still going to be forced into pulling on a banner you don't really want to pull on, because it's going to be really hit or miss as to whether people even want anything on it. Above all else though, we just need some transparency, or some token insight as to why such a bizarre turn of events has occurred and how we might continue to support the game if we consider the options presented good enough to continue to do so. While I don't think it's any one person's fault that we haven't had any of this as of yet, it is unfortunately on the company's part to rectify this so that some faith might be restored. I mean, there's every chance though that the damage has already been done. For me personally, in case of that eventuality, many of you will have noticed that I've tried very hard to redirect some of my content, particularly on stream, towards other things, such as Final Fantasy XIV, the Pixel remasters, Count Up in general, and focusing on the franchise in which my fandom birthed my playing of Dissidia Final Fantasy in the first place, which is Final Fantasy. I know earlier in the year I did start to slow down on Dissidia by making it so that my Should You Pull videos and my covered videos are once a week each, as opposed to as each event comes up, and that was in part due to being afraid that something could happen that could impact my work negatively, and also because I wanted the extra time to kind of focus on other things like Final Fantasy XIV, etc. But the truth is, I think I've been spending too much time trying to carve out niches for things that I possibly don't know as well as I could or other content creators do, when really I should just be focusing on the thing I do know a lot about, which is the franchise itself. And I'm going to be transparent with you all. I've been working on some redesigns for the channel. Some of my followers may well have already seen some of what I'm working on, and I hope that you liked what you've seen so far, and I hope that you enjoy what you see going forward. And to be honest, I've been working on broadening my content for over a year now, because I felt creatively stifled by focusing solely on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. But at this point, it just doesn't feel like an option anymore. To stay solely on Opera Omnia, I think could really hurt me going into the future, and therefore I selfishly need to look to the future in a logical way that makes sense in terms of blossoming and broadening my horizons and growing instead of shrinking. I'll continue to present my Should You Pull videos and my covered videos as I have been. Just be aware that the situation in general is far from unnoticed for me. If anything, it's actually made me fairly paranoid and frightened. Now, of course, I don't ask anything of my viewers, my followers, subscribers, anything like that, because I know that as a content creator, certainly one that's a full-time content creator, it's on me to provide content that's strong enough for people to want to watch what I do and watch good content, rather than anything else. I just felt that at this point it was prudent of me to speak my truth on the matter when I had been quieter about it previously, and explain how it affects the community at large and the channel itself. So that's kind of everything I have to say on the matter. It's a very difficult video for me to film, and as I said, I'm not in my normal sort of space to do that because I didn't feel I could do it from in that room. It's a strange thing, but I'm sure people will understand, or I hope people will understand where I'm coming from with this video in general. And all I can really say is that I'm sorry that I haven't been more vocal about it previously, and I hope that the reasoning that I give, even if it's not agreed with, that it's understood. That's all I really have to say on that, and I really do hope that this next community stream we do get some good news, we do get some faith restored in what's going on, because despite the fact that I've buried my head in the sand about it a little bit, it really has affected me quite badly, and I know that I'm not alone in the situation, and I think that the community as a whole, it'd be lovely just to see us all come together to try and do something. And I know I can be a bit of a nightmare for separating myself from stuff and kind of taking everything on my own, and I need to learn to stop doing that, and I understand that. But yeah, that's kind of where I am with it at the moment. Thank you ever so much for watching, and please, don't send any hate to anybody at all over the situation, because it doesn't help anybody. Be angry at the situation. I'm angry at the situation, but don't send hate to anybody. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, all that stuff that I say at the end of every video. And tomorrow I'll be back to normal. I've got Fang and Beatrix. Beatrix is exciting. I love Beatrix, we all know that. And fingers crossed for Monday, I guess. See you guys later. Thank you very much. Bye.